Welcome back. This special one-hour edition of the NCW Life magazine is all about the proposal to renovate Wenatchee High School. Now, we sit down with current high school principal Eric Anderson. It's his second year on the job.
Well, I think, first and foremost, this was a building that was designed in the 70s, and a lot has changed in education since the 70s. So from a pure design standpoint, this was originally designed with movable walls, very few windows. That's really not the way schools are designed anymore for optimal learning. We do want windows, we want natural light in, you want large spaces. And really what it does is it allows our teaching staff to deliver, the most effective teaching strategies they can deliver. I think that our staff does a fantastic job with the space that they have right now. But really, if you start looking at the modern buildings down in Yakima that were just built, I know that Spokane has rebuilt a number of those schools. And as we start to look at those spaces, you really start to see what it could be like for our students here. In this building, almost 100% of the students in our district all come through this high school. And so, if we're talking about an elementary school student or a middle school student, they all eventually go through our high school. And I think our community has a ton of pride in our high school, and the building has been maintained exceptionally well. I come in and look at it and go, from a building in the 1970s, this thing is still in fantastic shape, but it's still not meeting the needs of what we would like to push our kids into that next stage of learning. And our staff's really there and ready to go. Well, I think, first of all, the larger classrooms are a huge deal. And when you start to look at that space that's been laid out, those classrooms are all larger than our current classrooms. And as I had alluded before, all those classrooms allow for collaborative work for students in classrooms, putting them in small groups, movement within classrooms, so students are able to get up and move around and do some different things from an engaging standpoint. Those STEAM rooms are actually just a little bit larger than that, and really designed for some large project-based, problem-based learning that we can kind of have staff move into. I don't know if we would have them being utilized by one teacher, or if that would be a rotation in. We haven't even gotten that far in those conversations yet. But again, these are just larger classrooms allowing teachers to explore more opportunities for student learning. Well, I think one of the first things I noticed, and I think everybody notices when you walk in, we have some really large hallways. And I thought, man, this place is huge. But on the first day of school, when everybody came out of class at the end of sixth period and everyone was leaving, I realized how those hallways weren't as big as I thought they were. We've got a lot of students. There's a lot of crowd in that hallway. And you start to really quickly see some pinch points. Back in the CTE area, as that main hallway kind of goes into CTE, there's some areas there where we have like almost a standing line in between classes for kids to kind of make it through there. Also at lunchtime, you start to realize that our commons is not large enough to seat everybody for our lunches. We have students that kind of push out into our hallway area, kind of the ramp space in the main hallway and into the counseling area. So we start to expand out those spaces, which ultimately in a perfect world, we wouldn't have that. We would have students in one place away from where instruction is being delivered, but that's where it is right now. So those are some of the challenges that I've seen. I've also seen with staff, our staff share a lot of rooms right now. So we have teachers that travel quite a bit that are on carts. And don't really have a true collaboration space. We've got a couple small staff lounge areas, but really not a space for staff to kind of work together during their prep time. I would say that the square design actually, in terms of just the layout, is not a bad layout because there is kind of a pattern to how students move throughout the building. But I will say that it's just, again, we've got, for the number of students that we have, some of our hallway spaces just aren't designed correctly. Our bathrooms, the flow of our bathrooms is not very good. The way they're located, it does create some problems in some different situations. We've got just the CTE itself, the way kind of we roll out, and then you have to go through a narrow hallway to get out to our portables right now. Also creates some problems where we have to leave some doors unlocked, where we'd rather not leave some doors unlocked. Because that's a space where they've got to go out to the portables and then back in again. Beyond that, we've just got a lot of aging stuff in our building. We had a water issue in our cafeteria at one point this year. That did get fixed, but it's just we've got some old plumbing. We've got some things that just are starting to break down over time. So those are just things that we're working with. Well, we're just starting to see some things that just from age. We have our coolers that are starting to have issues inside that space. So some of the storage itself is just not exactly adequate. They're kind of double stacking some things to. It all works. It's all safe. It's not in that respect, but in terms of being ideal, to really create an efficient system for our cooking staff. It's not there right now. We've got coolers that are separated in 2 different spaces. So our kitchen staff does an awesome job with what they have, but it's certainly not ideal for the number of students they feed every day. Our gym space, our commons and cafeteria space, and our auditorium are probably the largest used facilities or parts of the facility in our building. The classroom space itself, we have a couple small groups that use those here and there, but that's not really the main purpose of it, obviously. Those large spaces that are being used by the community, and they're used quite a bit. Our gyms are used quite a bit by volleyball teams, basketball teams, and then obviously our outdoor field space, which could use some improvement right now. Our track is starting to dwindle. So I would just say that, I mean, again, as those things are just enhanced, we just have, we have more groups that are probably desiring to use that space. And right now they're not ideal. Even our kitchen spaces we just talked about a minute ago, as groups want to use that common space, that kitchen does kind of narrow down the availability to use that space in an effective way. I think, well, what it really looks like to me is in essence larger classroom space where you walk in and you can see, wow, this is different than when I was in high school. When I was in high school, we were in rows, we were, kind of packed in there together, and it was kind of that assembly line. That's not what we're looking for anymore. That's not our desire or goal at that high school level. And we want to see kids up. We want to see kids moving. We want to see engagement. We want to see talking. And having larger space with modern technology, with natural light coming in, all motivates that. And students take pride. I mean, they've taken pride in the building that we have, and I know that they would take an immense amount of pride in a new building. I've only been here for 2 years, so I can't say, no one has shared that with me specifically, so I couldn't state that as anybody sharing that with me. That would surprise me a little bit. I mean, I don't know that I would say a facility would ever drive somebody away, but I would say that our facility just does create challenges. I mean, the smaller classrooms that we have, if you're trying to create an engaging environment where you've got movement in the classroom, where you've got students working in groups, some of our classrooms are pretty small and there's really not space to do that. So I can see that frustrating a staff member, but I have not personally heard of anybody leaving because of the facility.
The NCW Life magazine continues with Wenatchee High School student leaders after this.